behind Blue Eyes, Stephen. It's a lovely little time of the week. It's just that little peaceful 30 minutes that you and I spend together on a weekly basis, and there is so much to talk about. How are you, my friend?
I'm going good, Tommy. That is, Timmy, that is so romantic for you to say stuff like that. Thank you.
Well, that's what I'm capable of. You know that. You know that. Look, from romance to the coaching cycle, did you ever think that in a year where the whole world is wobbling on its axis because of COVID-19 that we'd see about 5 or 6 coaches sent down the river?
Yeah, I've got to say, some of them have been out of the blue too. I mean, the COVID must have affected a lot of people who makes decisions to make them pretty quickly and promptly. I watched the Seabold one this morning. Gee, I felt for him, mate. Apart from, the Broncos not doing well and him getting the flick, all that cyber bullying and all that, I don't understand all that sort of stuff. And, mate, I just hope, for his sake, coaching's a big part of people's lives. But, once it involves your family and all that sort of stuff, it just goes into murky water.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's quite worked, has it, since he got there? He did such a good job at South Sydney. He had to inherit the bad blood that had been left behind. And I'm not making excuses for him, but it's not always one person's fault when a team can't beat time with a stick.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose what you do, Timmy, in these sort of circumstances is look back on what you might have done wrong. You could drive yourself mad, couldn't you? I think the first thing he did wrong, and he probably thought it was right at the time, is get rid of a couple of experienced players from the Broncos, mate. It's so important. You can't throw a team of young blokes into the NRL and just go, mate, it's all going to happen for you, because there's times and different situations where you've got to look to the experienced blokes to try and help you through. And to me, it just seemed like they didn't know how to get out of the hole.
Yeah. Now, do you think a new coach will be able to turn things around by next year?
Yeah, look, I think they'll be able to win back a lot of the fans and the sponsors and all that sort of stuff. If they put a bloke like Kevin Walters in, I reckon the hurling will start, and then you got to see what sort of players, if he does get the job, what sort of players he can attract to the club, and I think he might try and get a little bit of experience there, and then and just the restart and just the hurling of the club at the moment, mate. They're burning. Who would have ever thought? The way that I think about the Broncos was this, just this juggernaut that marched into games and away they went. When I used to see them in big games, I'd see them come to the stadium. I used to go, wow, there's the Broncos. But now, with all those young blokes in the side, it's not their fault too. They've been probably thrown in a little bit too young. They need to re-establish what the Broncos are all about. Get a bit of DNA back.
Is he the right guy if he wants the job, do you think?
Is Kevin the right guy? Mate, look, he's done a pretty good job with the Origin, although he's lost the last couple. But mate, that goes with the personnel you got and all that sort of stuff. I think he can start to hurl the place by bringing back that furl and getting all the old players back involved. And I'm sure that he's smart enough to surround himself with the people that can help him do a better job. I think what happens with a lot of coaches now, when they get the job, they never want to put anyone in that's better than them. But, I think that's pretty senseless. I reckon you've got to get people, if you do get the head job, that have got the ability to improve you too. So, you're the head man, but, you surround yourself with people, who can get their job done. So, yes, in quick to the answer to your question, mate, I think for this time, the way the Broncos are at the moment, I think probably Kevin Walters would be the right bloke for the job.
Yeah, and it's so true what you say. There's been no surprise that a lot of the lieutenants for Craig Bellamy have gone on to be successful coaches because he's decided to say, I want to get good people around me who will help me. Now, Luke Keary, would you have any hesitation in picking him for New South Wales, depending on how long that rib keeps him out?
No, I wouldn't hesitate, mate. I think what's going to happen is the team that marches, or the teams that march into the semi-finals, are going to have a bigger hope of playing in that State of Origin series. I think he's out for a few weeks with that crook rib. He'll be back, mate, come big games, and I think the Roosters will be there. They're having a rough trot at the moment, but mate, they'll be good enough to go deep into the semi-finals once they come around and they get a few players back, which they have this week too.
What would you want to see from him, you reckon, when he does come back? Because when you think about it, there's only a few weeks to go, then finals.
Yeah, mate. I think a lot of people have seen enough from him. Just the ability to win those last couple of grand finals too. His patience and his ability to do something in the big moments. I think we've all seen enough to know that, if he's fit and he does play in those last few games in the semi-finals and hopefully go through to the grand final if it's the Roosters, that he'd be ready to play, mate. So look, he's played in big games. A lot of these guys now, they have a few weeks off, they'll freshen up. And, mate, he's the linchpin. Before his injury, was, mate, near on the best player in the game.
Oh, absolutely. He's clever. He's so clever. Look, Brisbane, you mentioned it before. We're so used to them being this powerhouse, this so well organised, drilled, oiled machine. And it hasn't been. It's been a bit of a schmozzle this year. But one shining light has been the ability of Kotoni Staggs. What about that try?
I know. Well, mate, what you look for in those, players that are going to be great, and I've got no doubt this bloke is going to be a sensation, is their ability, Timmy, to be able to do something on their own. Mate, that try that he scored the other day, I mean, mate, I'd pay to go and watch that kid play. When you have a look at, all the things that are combined with his power, his speed, his ability and balance to stay on his feet, and I just love those sort of players. I wish I was one of them, mate, when I was playing. Just one of those guys that makes the decision that he's going to go for it. And, mate, we've had a lot of players over the last 20 years that could do that. And, mate, I'm really excited about this young bloke. I reckon there's been a lot of injuries this year, and I reckon he'll definitely be in the squad, if not a starting centre for New South Wales. He's a super player.
He looks like an Origin player too, doesn't he? Because you mentioned that strength and pace, but there was a fair bit of determination. They talk about success being the intersection of inspiration and determination, and he's shown it on several occasions this year in beaten football teams that he has that.
Yeah, no, you're right, Timmy. When mate, a lot of those sort of tries that you look at that are individual brilliance. I always look at blokes who are, the two or three blokes who are attempting to tackle him, and the balance and the fend and the swerve and all that sort of stuff. But not only doing those sort of things, with their step and swerve, but keeping at the same pace. The really great ones, once they hit the ground or they step, they take off, and that just. We mentioned all those things and power and all that sort of stuff, and just the confidence to say, you know what, I'm going to do something for this footy team here, and I'm going to do it right now. That's the sort of thing that I love watching.
Yeah, and you can see the want, you can see the desperation to be successful. It's great to watch. Now, Klemmer, big David Klemmer, will play his 150th game this weekend in Tamworth, a player that he's achieved so much at such a young age, really, and he hasn't missed a game so far this season. 181 metres per game he's averaging.
Yeah.
Made 18 tackle breaks and 40 offloads. They're pretty good stats, aren't they?
Mate, they're sensational. The thing is that he's added a little bit to his game too. Like as you get a bit older, Timmy, and you get more experience, you've got to be able to add something to your game. And I noticed you just mentioned the offloads and all that sort of stuff. And mate, they are gold now, especially with the six again. If you can get a repeat set and get that six again and get an offload in a second or third tackle, geez, that really upsets the defensive line. And Klemmer, to his credit, mate, he'll be one of the first pick for New South Wales. I know there's a lot of good front rowers around, but this guy, his consistency and the way that he plays, you mentioned it, 181 metres a week, every week, just rolls the sleeves up and away he goes. And, mate, it takes two or three blokes to try and put him on the ground. So he's got wonderful strength, great size, and, mate, and as you said, too, Timmy, the experience now. So I think he's one of the big reasons that Newcastle are doing so well.
Yeah, and that experience, it directly correlates to New South Wales because it's such a rarefied air, those Origin games, and I never played in one, but I've spoken to you and all the guys so many times to talk about the speed. So having been there before and the amount of times, he's really going to be a forward leader, David Klemmer. Let's have a bit of a squiz at a few of these games, Block, because there's some interesting ones. Rabbitohs and Eels. Do you think Latrell has put the doubters away? Because he looked fitter at fullback, and gosh, they were in a demolishing mood.
Timmy, I love him as a player, mate, as you know, but it's a little bit too spasmodic for me. 2 tries last week, but still, when you look at how, I sort of look and compare him. Other fullbacks, there's a lot of other fullbacks in the competition that can't do things as well as he can, but they can do lesser more often, if you understand what I mean. I'd just like to see him get on his bike and look like that he really wants to roam and really wants to play for 80 minutes. So I suppose when you got talent like him, it comes to him so easily that I don't know whether he's hungry to play 80 minutes every week. Mate, don't get me wrong, I love watching him play. I love him as a player. But to me, I'd love to see him get his hands on the ball and go looking for it and want and that will to get the football and do something with it when he's got it. He sits back a little bit still for me.
Gary Schofield, we saw him be critical of Adam Reynolds. What have you thought of his response, Reynolds, over the past few weeks?
Well, I reckon he should bag him again. Just, mate, since he's bagged him, he's come out and he's done everything right, hasn't he? I mean, that's a class player that can. I remember when they played Parramatta a couple of weeks ago, and they looked up. Or was it Parramatta? He looked up anyway. The fullback was in the line, and he chipped over the top and scored. So that's a vision player. Plus, you know what? Out of everyone in the NRL as a goal kicker, if I'm backing someone to kick me in for a win in a big game, mate, Adam Reynolds has got that too. So he took the criticism on the chin. I suppose I don't really know. This isn't an arrogance, but someone bagging you from the other side of the world about bagging all the halves and that in Australia, Scully's got to realise that you got to look in your own backyard to start, because mate, they haven't won a Test series for 40 years or 30 or whatever it is. It's a long time. So I'd probably, if I was him, I'd probably be trying to get my blokes over in England a little bit better and trying to teach them how to play rather than, looking at the Aussies and going, these guys can't play the halves.
And it looked to me like he'd come up with a clever line, so he thought he'd just use it.
Yeah. No, he's always been like that, mate. He was a brilliant player. Don't get me wrong, but I honestly don't know what he would get out of, bagging a game on the other side of the world or bagging the halves on the other side of the world. I don't know what he'd get out of it.
Yeah, it's a little bit odd, isn't it? Do they need to win this, do you think, Block? And I know we're getting into a little bit airy-fairy kind of talk, but you do need to have a few markers, don't you, throughout the course of the season. You need to beat some of those top teams to be perceived as a real competition threat. And they haven't really knocked over the big dogs, have they, South? So Parramatta this year is probably classified as one of them. So it's a big game.
Yeah, I reckon it's a must-win for South. Mate, they were sensational last week against Manly, but Manly were depleted. But you still got to go out there and do it. What was it, 36-0 at something at half-time? The game was all over, but they went on with it in the second half. Look, I think they've got the personnel and the type of player that can really put some dints in it, but I'm with you. But to me, Timmy, it's all about timing. You come good at the right time of the year, and this is when you need to come good now, starting at the back end of it, just 4 weeks or whatever it is before the semi-finals. They're sitting in a nice position at the moment, South, but I think it's a must-win. If everyone's going to take them seriously, it's a must-win against the Parramatta side.
Yeah, they were down on numbers last week, the Roosters again, but Kyle Flanagan came back after a few weeks out. Boy, he played well, and to get the 2 points, they'll be pretty happy with that. And he's such a clever guy, Trent Robinson, and obviously Boyd Cordner needed some time off because of that concussion, but he slips in here back nicely against the Broncos. this week, and you can just see how they might just start to build their finals campaign from here on in.
Yeah, as I said, mate, it's all about timing. You know, Boydie, I know him pretty well, mate. He would have been pig-headed about them giving him a rest for such a long period. But, you know, the big picture, you know, I suppose Trent Robinson would have been looking where they're sitting on the ladder at the moment, you know, and weeks before and going, you know what, we're going to finish where we want to finish in the top 4. That's our main goal. If we can get there and we can rest a couple of our big guns and then bring them back in the big games. You know, Boyd Cordner's played a lot of big games. You know, obviously he would have wanted to play over the last few weeks, but, you know, they've stuck by their protocols and said, mate, you know what? We don't think you're ready to play. I think that's looking after your players in the long run, because, you know, in the long run, when you retire 20, 30 years down the track and you start to repeat yourself every 6 times, that, you know, he'll be happy that they looked after him when they did.
Yeah, and comes up against the Broncos. Look, Daniel Tupou comes back as well, and I know he's my son's favourite player, but he's so pivotal on that wing. He's got that enormous height, which just gives them a real advantage often against some of the more competitive teams.
Yeah, they've got a lot of go-to men, haven't they? The Roosters. I suppose the hardest thing at training when they're all fully fit and they're all playing. You know, who's the main man that you go to with it? You know, the Morris boys and then Tupou and all those sort of guys. Tedesco at the back. But, mate, I'm with you. There's no one that can grab a ball out of the air in the NRL like Tupou. And, mate, it's great to see him back. He's had I reckon he's had a magnificent run. I can hardly barely remember him missing games with injury up until now. So, mate, he's another one that'll come back. And, you know, when I look at the Roosters players run on the field and then play in the first 15 minutes, I don't know. It must be the way they train or something. They look a lot fitter or something. I don't know what it is. It's just something about those Roosters when they're fully fit and they're on fire, and, you know, their first 15 minutes is always so good.
Yeah, and the Morris boys, I tell you what, they're like a lovely little Barossa red, aren't they, Stephen? They just get better and better. There's a few little silver numbers coming through their hair, but they've re-signed again for next year.
So they should. I mean, mate, they're try-scoring machines. If you sit back and you imagine making a video of the father and the 2 sons and sitting back and enjoying their, you know, the tries that they've scored. I mean, there's a lot of people out there, because what happens is once you retire and you sit back and you sort of lose your memory of how good blokes were. Mate, imagine sitting back and watching those 3 guys scoring all those tries. I mean, I'd go and buy it. I'd love to sit back and just go, wow, how good are these guys? When they get the footy and the amount of strength that they've got and their determination, mate, it's just great to watch. And I'm not surprised that they're going to play for another year. You know, why retire? You retired for a long, long time. If you're athletic enough and you're feeling fit enough to play, why not? They're playing great. So I'm happy they've signed again.
I love them too. They're cheeky fellas. I remember them telling me the story when we're doing some of the openers for Channel 9 years and years and years ago for Origin, because they've been around a long time. And they used to, they'd swap, they'd tease their grandmother. Like one of them, just anyway. They're a couple of characters and they're very, very talented football players. Look, the Tigers, Stephen, I don't want to bring up this story, but I have to. It's been a tough old year, another ordinary week, but at least they've only got Penrith this week.
Yeah, no, that's you'd be able to cruise through this week, wouldn't you? Right? Oh my God!
Oh,
and mate,
goodness!
I just hope there's still a little bit of feeling of what Ivan Cleary done to the Tigers. You know, he was the man that was telling everyone to get on the bus, and then he jumped off. So hopefully that's motivation for him enough. Do you know what? Like last week, you know, the Tigers were always renowned at playing at Leichhardt, and, you know, they're always renowned. It was going to be tough if you were visiting there. They were meek and mild last week. I just couldn't believe what I was watching, and nowhere near a full strength Roosters side. And you know, it looks to me like a lot of them already knocked off for the season. I know it's been a strange season, but mate, you got to at least try and, you know, dig in a little bit. You know, it must be terribly frustrating for their coach, who's a hard taskmaster, but he might be even running out of ideas at the moment.
Well, the best player of this recent generation, a true blue, Andrew Johns, he didn't muck around, did he? He said the
Didn't
defensive.
miss. Didn't miss.
He said their defence. He said their defence was pathetic.
I know. It's not, mate. It's not a good. It's not a good endorsement when you get that sort of that saying from a bloke who's got the standing in the game and still young enough and just finished his career for all these guys to remember. So, a bloke like Andrew John saying that sort of stuff I reckon that'd sting. Let's hope they get a response this week against Penrith.
Yeah, because he was that, without diverting too far, he was that quintessential, not a big guy, but would put himself in the front of anything, wouldn't he?
He put 110 kilo front rows on their heads.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, let's hope they do block. Do you think Joey Leilua will keep his cool in this game after being sin-binned and suspended the last time the two teams met? It was a bit of an odd moment, that.
Yeah, I hope so, mate, because he's so damaging. It just, I don't know, why is it taking him so long to Jerry that he doesn't need to do all that other stuff, mate, I don't know. I just like to see him playing at his best, because at his best, he's as hard as anyone in the centres to handle in the whole game, or anyone outside back to handle in the game. So, I don't really know how he ticks, but anyway, hopefully he can get that out of his mind and just concentrate on playing, because, mate, if he does, mate, he's a damaging player.
One of your favourites is out this week, Appy Coruscant. How will that affect things for Penrith? And just on that point, he's a real genuine contender for the Blues, isn't he?
Oh yeah. Freddie's pretty loyal sort of bloke, but I suppose a bloke like Appy Coruscant is going, like I know Cookie's in the side and all that, but I'm gonna make him pick me. He's been sensational. I said before kickoff, I thought this guy's going to be the buy of the year. I think he has been. I think he's been absolutely outstanding. It's a little bit unfortunate that he's going to miss this game, but I love him as a player. And mate, even if they do pick a 25-man squad at the end of the year, I'd be surprised if Appy isn't in that squad. And imagine if Penrith, the way that they're going, and they go through the competition and they play in the grand final, he's even more of a chance then, because he'll be nice and fresh from playing the game.
Yeah, he'll have it in his legs, won't he? Okay, finally, Storm Eagles. Look, I know they were down on numbers, the Storm, last week, but it looked to me like Parramatta could have beaten them by 30 if they clicked, and they held them to nothing. No Dale Finucane, and he's out for 6 weeks. What do you reckon?
Oh, mate, look, I've got to say, I sat back looking at that game and looking at the first 20, and I'm thinking, Parramatta should put these guys to the sword here. That's only my little reservation with the Parramatta side. Look, I think they're a good side, and I like what they do, but when they play against Melbourne and that, they can never do their best, can they? I don't know whether it's the Melbourne thing and might be their bogey side or whatever it is. I know they ended up winning the game, but they should have put them to the sword. They'll slowly start to get players back, Melbourne, and mate, if they're all fit, come the end of the year, I reckon they're going to be hard to beat, because they're battle hardened. They know how to play in all the big games. They've been there and abouts for the last decade, really, haven't they? So, but Para, I don't know. The jury's still out for me whether they can win the comp.
Cameron Smith, just the last couple of quick questions, Block. He's always going to get attention. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. Should he come to the table and make an announcement on his future, or do you think along the lines of Billy Slater, he's got enough status and credit in the game to make it when he's ready?
Yeah, I don't know what sort of pressure the Melbourne Storm are putting on him too, because they've got to make a decision. They've got bloody 2 hookers sitting there ready to go, in Grant and also the little Wombat. So I don't know. I don't know whether they'd be pushing him to make a decision. Has he won the right? Has anyone got the right to sort of fob off? I don't really know. He's probably up there with the greatest players ever to play. So I don't know if that gives you the status to hold out on your club or your teammates. But I'll tell you what I will say, but Timmy, I'd be very disappointed if he left the Melbourne Storm. I mean, I can't see Cameron Smith playing with anyone else. If he wants to play, I think he's still playing well enough to play for the Melbourne Storm next year. And then, whatever happens to the other two, I suppose they can go and do their best, But I can't see him play. I want him to be a Melbourne Storm player forever, for as long as his career is.
Yeah, but at this point it would seem a little strange, wouldn't it, if he was wearing other colours, having been there for as long as he has and being such an absolute out-and-out legend of the game. Look, Manly, I sort of think I know the answer here, Block. They need absolutely everything to go right, and they're not going to have Turbo. Is it over for 2020? Your thoughts?
Oh, mate, hey, one thing I'll tell you about Desi Hasler side and the Manly side, they've got plenty of pride. They'll go down swinging. But to answer your question, I can't see how they're going to make it, mate. I can't see it. I mean, the top 8 now is probably what it's going to be. They're 3 points behind at the moment. So that's
they've got to win every game, really.
Yeah, mate, tell you the truth, I'd love to see them there. I know they'll go down swinging, but I think they'll just miss the 8.
Yeah, it might be a 2021. They might be able to enjoy Freshwater Beach a little bit before the finals this year. But Stephen,
that's the great thing about our game, Timmy. There's always next year.
yeah, that's about life, isn't it? There's always tomorrow. But it's been good fun. There's so much to talk about. We're getting up to some really exciting times, heading towards an Origin series, which is obviously very different to the ones we've seen in the past. So I'll look forward to chin-wagging with you again, my friend.
Good man, Timmy. Have a good week.
We have successfully gone behind blue eyes.
Throws the pass. He's got it back to you-know-who. Tedesco for the corner.